Posted by you/throwrainfee. My boyfriend, 37M, and I, 29F, moved in together about a year ago. I was very clear from our second date that I don't want biological kids. I've discussed it at length with him, and until about 2.5 weeks ago, I thought we were on the same page. He told me he didn't think he could do another 18 years of child rearing, as he already has a 10-year-old daughter. She just moved in with us in January. He bought a house, we got a dog together, and I was planning an entire life with him and his daughter. Originally, he told me he bought the house so that his daughter would have a bedroom. The other night, he told me his entire purpose in marrying me was to have a child, news to me, and that the whole reason he bought the house was so we could build toward having an actual family, minimizing the one we already have. I've been crying in secret for 2 weeks. I finally accepted yesterday that I probably can't stay in this relationship. I wanted marriage, and he's telling me that marriage is innately tied to having a child with him. I can't compromise that part of myself. But I'm also trying not to spiral. My car broke down unexpectedly yesterday, it's leaking oil from the bottom, and I have no savings. I've been living paycheck to paycheck, spending money on our mortgage, 4 pets, activities with his daughter, and paying down credit. I have no idea what my next step should be. The worst part is that I still love him so much. He is such a good person, and everything feels so normal, except that he doesn't want to get married anymore and wants to have a child, and I still don't. I'm struggling to see solutions. I know I need to leave, but logistically, I'm having so much difficulty figuring it out, especially while trying to sort through my feelings in the midst of it. Edit. I am not on the mortgage with him. I told him I would not sign anything together unless we got married. I have been contributing to basic living costs, mortgage payments, bills, groceries, etc., because I care about him and thought we were building a life together. I didn't want him to have to handle things alone because I believed we were in a partnership. He has helped support me as well, but he has also ignored my voice in ways I dismissed and am now able to see. I want to say I really appreciate everyone's suggestions and support. It has been really helpful and meaningful, and it's also validating my decision. Update 6 days later. Several people requested an update, and boy, do I have one for you. I dropped my vehicle off at the mechanic on Friday and waited until Tuesday to hear back. He called me that Tuesday afternoon, just after I finished work, to tell me he had diagnosed the problem and it was going to be less than $300 to fix. He said it would take about a week to complete the repair. I started making arrangements with a kind coworker for rides to work, but then that evening, I got another call from the mechanic. He told me he had already gotten the part, replaced it, and that my car would be ready for pickup that evening. Tuesday night, when I got home, my boyfriend and I ended up in an extremely intense discussion. Once again, he made it abundantly clear that he doesn't care at all about getting married. Not only did he emphasize this, but he also spent about 2 hours dismissing, minimizing, and deflecting the importance of marriage to me. He kept throwing it in my face that the way I feel about marriage with him is how he feels about having kids with me. He said nothing would change if we got married, but when I asked why it matters so much if nothing would actually change, and why he wouldn't just get married since it's clearly important to me, he gave no substantial response, only deflection and patronization. It was honestly devastating, and I can't do it justice by typing it out. I spent from 9 p.m. until 1 a.m. crying, and I sobbed myself to sleep. There was no room for denial at that point, and because my vehicle had miraculously been fixed, I had an out. On Wednesday, I contacted a local landlord I had rented from previously and asked if they had any available units. They did, and it was within my price range at a flat rate. She told me she would call me back, and she did, saying I could come in the next day to look at it. Which brings us to today. After work, I went straight to the landlord's office, got the keys, and looked at the apartment. It's tiny, but it's perfect. I decided to take it. I knew that when I got home, I had to tell him. He came home after me, and when he walked in the door, I asked if he had any plans for the evening. He said no, so I knew it was a good time for the conversation about me moving out. I started by telling him I was moving out, and when he asked why, I explained that our recent conversations had made it clear there were many unspoken expectations affecting our relationship. I told him there was no way to gain clarity on those while we were living together. During that conversation, he told me he had invested everything in our relationship and asked what I had invested. He acted as though I had railroaded him through the entire relationship and said he was compromising on having children, but the one time he asks me for something, I refuse to compromise. He guilt-tripped me again, saying he's either having kids with me or not having them at all due to his age, and this is his last chance. He said he'll never date again if our relationship doesn't work. He also blamed me for having to explain the situation to his daughter, and based on what he said, I don't think he's going to let me say goodbye to her. He was surprised when I told him I wanted the dog to stay with him. I explained that I was doing this because marriage and children in relationships don't have a gray area. I don't see a way to bridge that gap since we want different things. I told him I wasn't ending the relationship because I didn't care about him, his daughter, our life together, or the dog, but because I believe this is the right thing to do right now. I even admitted that I could be wrong, but I wasn't sure what else to say. He went back to talking about marriage, saying it wouldn't change anything about the relationship and minimizing its value. He claimed he would still be doing everything in the relationship and committing to it without needing marriage. I responded by saying I didn't understand how he could make all these commitments and invest so much but still be unwilling to fully commit through marriage. The final nail in the coffin for me was when he said he views marriage as just an institution and doesn't need a piece of paper to validate his relationship. He added that, unlike me, he wasn't raised in a religious environment of sheep that led him to believe marriage was the make or break of a successful relationship. After that, I cried a lot, then went to get some ice cream. I feel better now. I'm going to start moving my stuff into the new apartment tomorrow, and everything worked out so quickly that it tells me I'm on the right track. Thanks to the community for the encouragement. I thought I was going crazy. But after tonight's conversation, I realized that the only time I actually feel crazy is after I talk to him. I'm also looking forward to having my own place again, quiet and just for me. I know I'll still be sad for a while, but I also know that I'm going to be okay. I've added more info in 2 comments. Comment 1. I think I mentioned earlier that there were probably signs I didn't register as relevant or important, mainly because most of the concerns I began to notice only after we moved in together. The dismissal and sudden change in his attitude towards marriage tell me he wasn't ready to make a full commitment. Looking back, we started having intimacy issues around the 1-year mark, shortly after moving in together, and it has only gotten worse. I think a lot of it may be due to him harboring these feelings and resentments. He was dishonest with me, but the crappiest part about manipulation is that I think most people who manipulate don't do it with malicious intent. Unfortunately, I allowed myself to get caught in a position where I trusted and relied on him more than I actually knew him. This led me to make commitments, moving in, helping with living costs and his daughter, etc., that I should have waited on until I was sure we were truly compatible. The way he's acting now, it's as though this is a one-sided breakup, even though we were at a mutual deadlock in our values. But he doesn't see it that way. I believe his reaction when I told him I was moving out was a mix of feeling devastated, heartbroken, and extremely scared, because he knows the reality of how much I've supported him and helped in our relationship, especially with his daughter. He lashed out because he was defensive and hurt. Thankfully, he's currently acting like I don't exist, so the moving process has been relatively painless. I can tell he's very uncomfortable and sad, just like me. I'm terrified, but deep down, I feel this was the right thing to do, and I know these feelings will pass. Thank you for your encouragement. Comment 2. I had never actually wanted to get married until I met my, now ex-boyfriend, and that was a conversation we had after about a year of dating. Looking back, I think he might have just been telling me what he thought I wanted to hear, because if he had voiced his true opinions early on, he knew I probably would have left. In that sense, it wasn't about marriage in general, it was about wanting to get married to him. I thought I had really found a partner. In the first year, there weren't any signs that our relationship was transactional in any way. He was attentive, compassionate when I expressed strong emotions, curious, thoughtful, and considerate. We also seemed to work well together, challenging each other to become better people in ways that I truly wouldn't be the same person without. It seemed like we shared the same goals: self-improvement, working towards financial independence, learning and educating ourselves, and valuing authenticity. At one point, he even completed a training on being a better dad and partner through an online course with one of his favorite self-help authors. It was only after we moved in together that things really started to change, and once his daughter moved in, it changed even more drastically. One of the biggest reasons I wanted to marry him specifically was because I had never been in a relationship with someone who challenged me to be a better person. My spirituality became stronger, and I became more confident in sharing my thoughts and feelings because, in that first year, he gave me the space to do that. And I loved his daughter, loved her. Getting to know her and being an objective but ever-present support really helped me gain a treasured perspective. I became a better person, more patient, with a better sense of humor, and more willing to let go of control issues. She even called me her stepmom, and I loved being that for her, whatever it meant in her eyes. I felt there was a sense of unity in marriage, and I wanted to feel fully integrated with both her and him as her stepmom. Marriage seemed like the natural next step to achieve that. I also wanted to be deeply involved in their lives, ensuring that if anything happened to any of us, I'd have the protection or ability to be involved in their lives, legally and emotionally. To me, marriage is a commitment, a total commitment. A commitment to sharing values, goals, assets, community, and life in every aspect, and I wanted that unity. I thought at one point I could trust him with that level of vulnerability, and I wanted to share that with him. That's just my perspective. But I can see now that if those things had happened, it might have turned out disastrous. So, here we are.